Hello, everyone. My name is Melissa Champagne. I'm the Associate Director of Alumni Engagement at the Alumni Association. We're so excited that you could join us tonight for this different version, virtual, of one of our favorite events. And we're really excited to learn more about everything oysters in North Carolina. As I mentioned, we will be recording this and we'll send out all of the videos. And if you have questions, you can just drop them in the chat and we will get to as many of those as we're able. And I will let you know when we have about 5 minutes left. So if anybody has any burning questions, we can go ahead and wrap those up. But I'd like to turn it over to Whitney and Jane. Thank you.
All right, Melissa, thank you so much. And thank you all for joining us this evening. It's so wonderful to see you all. I see lots of folks out there enjoying oysters as we speak. Kudos to you. I hope they are delicious. My name is Dr. Whitney Knollenberg. I'm an assistant professor in the Department of Parks, Recreation, and Tourism Management at NC State. And I am joined today by Dr. Jane Harrison. Jane, you want to say hi?
Hey everybody, my name's Jane. I work for North Carolina Sea Grant based in Raleigh at NC State.
Awesome, thanks Jane. And we're really excited to talk with you all today about some work that we are doing with the North Carolina Oyster Trail. And before we jump over to that presentation, I did just want to thank all of you for your support as alumni and all that you do for NC State. We couldn't do it without you. So thank you very much for your ongoing support and again for being here with us tonight. I am going to have a few opportunities for you all to participate today. I have been teaching online, as you know, for the past couple semesters, and I find that all of this is a lot more fun for everyone if we participate and play along with some games that I call a drop in the chat. So I will give you some instructions on places that I would love for you to give us some ideas and share some of your experiences. So if you haven't used Zoom chat before, if you sort of hover over the bottom of your screen, you're going to see a little bubble icon that says chat underneath it, and you can pull that up and it'll give you the chat window so you can add into that when Jane and I ask.
Well, for here it's
All right. So Jane and I will be talking to you today about the impact of North Carolina State's research on the North Carolina Oyster Trail. And Jane and I are part of a team of phenomenal researchers from NC State, East Carolina, and North Carolina Sea Grant. So Jane, do you want to give a little overview of your work with Sea Grant before we get started?
Yeah, happy to. I am North Carolina Sea Grant's coastal economics specialist. North Carolina Sea Grant is a program of NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, and primarily we fund coastal and marine research across the state. So we work on issues of healthy coastal ecosystems, sustainable fisheries and aquaculture, resilient communities and economies, all the way to environmental literacy and workforce development. Before the COVID pandemic took over, I spent a lot of time on the coast. And so that's why I've got the background now. I remember it was like, I need to have a wave here just to remind myself where I used to go.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jane. And as I mentioned, I'm in the Department of Parks, Recreation, and Tourism Management in the College of Natural Resources. My research focuses on sustainable tourism development all across the state of North Carolina, but the coast has a special place in my heart. So Jane and I get to do a lot of work together in our coastal counties, but I do a lot of work as well in agritourism, which is a specialty of another one of our research fellows here, which is Dr. Carla Barbieri. She is a professor in the Department of Parks, Recreation, and Tourism Management. And she and I have done a lot of great work together in agritourism and food and beverage tourism. I tell people all the time that I really have the best job in the whole world because I get to understand why people travel to do the things they love and how we can make those things they love even better, which is something we'll talk about today with the Oyster Trail. Dr. Emily Yeager is a faculty member at East Carolina University. So this effort is a great partnership between NC State and ECU. And we of course have the support of the fantastic Julie Leibach, who works with Jane at North Carolina Sea Grant, who helps us with some great graphic design and communications work with this project. So this is the team that's really focusing on this work. And Jane and I are going to tell you a little bit about the Oyster Trail as a whole and the research that we're doing related to that. So to get us started, I want to give you a little bit of background on food tourism. because that is really what is driving the development of this North Carolina Oyster Trail. So one-of-a-kind food experiences, things that people can experience nowhere else in the world, helps to bring people to destinations. And here in North Carolina, we're really fortunate that we have phenomenal food experiences just like those related to the North Carolina oyster. So I would love to hear from you all, and this is your opportunity to participate between your oysters or your cocktails. Drop in the chat for me and tell me, where have you traveled for a food or beverage experience, and what food or beverage did you enjoy while you were there? So I'm going to keep talking, but you all feel free to jump in there and add to the chat with some of those examples of one-of-a-kind food experiences that you've traveled. Yes, Steve, North Carolina Barbecue Trail. I was just talking to my students about that today, and that was an example I gave of food tourism. So all these great examples that y'all are dropping here in the chat, I'm seeing international examples like Bordeaux, France, Mexico City. All those experiences, are you traveling for some sort of great food, but you're also doing a lot of other things along the way. You're staying in hotels, you're purchasing an airline ticket, you might be going to another attraction or going to an event while you're in that destination. All of those activities that you participate in brings money and brings jobs to those destinations that you're visiting. And the oysters here in North Carolina have the chance to do that for all of our coastal communities here in the eastern part of the state and across the state in other ways, like restaurants or seafood markets. Mary Rawls Whitby, yes, Sam Jones Barbecue in Winterville, great example. We just got a new operation from him here in Raleigh. Very excited about that. And what really brings people to these places, gets them to travel, like all these examples that you're giving us now, is the quality and the story behind that food. And the oysters that we have here in North Carolina that are either grown or wild harvested off our coast do a great job of telling the story of the culture of North Carolina and the people of North Carolina and the beautiful environment that we need to make those oysters taste the amazing way that they do. So that travel and the willingness of people to travel to these places to have this experience, like eating an oyster in Eastern North Carolina, really also helps to protect the culture and the people behind that food. So we already know that tourists love Eastern North Carolina. We have a very robust tourism industry in North Carolina. Think about all the great hotels and attractions that we have, our beautiful beaches. People know and love it. But if we can leverage our oysters and find ways to build really unique and wonderful experiences around them and the people that grow and harvest them, we can bring even more tourists to Eastern North Carolina, improving that economic impact and helping to further all the other great benefits that we get from tourism. So let's talk a little bit about how we have started the development of the North Carolina Oyster Trail. This is Jane's fantastic vision and incredible amount of work that she has put into making the Oyster Trail a reality. So I'm really excited to turn it over to her while I take a look at that chat and maybe drop a few comments in there as well. Jane, would you like me to keep the slides up, or do you want to do the screen share?
If you can just go to the next one, I'll let you know when to advance them.
Sounds good.
Great, thanks. So yeah, what is the North Carolina Oyster Trail? This is really a grassroots effort by people who love North Carolina oysters. And what we're attempting to do is to really sustain and grow oyster supply and demand in the state, and then resulting in economic, environmental, and social benefits to the state's seafood industry and coastal communities. Please visit ncOystertrail.org. That's where you're going to find out all about it. In a moment, I'm going to show you that website a little bit so you can get a flavor of what's there. We have 40 members currently on the Oyster Trail, and these members represent oyster growers that have shellfish farm tours, seafood restaurants that sell North Carolina oysters year-round, retail markets that provide North Carolina oysters year-round, as well as all kinds of interactive oyster tourism related experiences. So that could be going to an aquarium and seeing an exhibit on oysters. That might involve, visiting a North Carolina seafood festival, or even kayaking or doing some kind of outdoor recreation where you can visit natural oyster reefs. I want to just thank some of the folks that are giving suggestions in the chat for potential Oyster Trail members. This is really how we, continue to build what we're doing, is from the local knowledge that folks have of, who's really doing up North Carolina oysters. We launched the trail in May of 2020. So it has actually only been around for less than a year. And initially, we plan to focus our efforts in the Outer Banks. The North Carolina Oyster Trail is administered by North Carolina Sea Grant and the North Carolina Coastal Federation in partnership with the North Carolina Shellfish Growers Association. So, we're just kind of figuring this out as we go. And when we said initially we would just focus on the Outer Banks, we got so much interest from folks up and down the coast, even inland, saying, hey, we want to be on this trail as soon as you get going. And so we said, okay, we want this to be a success across the state, and we're willing to work with you if you can help us identify who these members will be. So I want to just give you an example or a few of our members thus far. So next slide, Whitney. Thank you. This is one of the members that Whitney and I actually have had the pleasure of eating some oysters at back, December 2019, I think, was when this trip occurred. And Blue Water Grill and Raw Bar, they serve several varieties of local Outer Banks oysters daily. And if you want to go to the next slide, you can see a nice picture of those oysters. And then they have these really beautiful cocktails that go along with them, as well as oyster shooters. And they host some really special dinners, throughout the year for oyster lovers. And they also recycle their oyster shells in partnership with the Coastal Federation. So this is just a great stop if you're on your way to the Outer Banks in Manio and you want to, get a flavor of what some of those northern Outer Banks oysters taste like. Blue Water Grill and Raw Bars is the place to stop. Next slide. Another example of one of our charter members, so these are the folks that started with us in 2020, is Bald Head Island Conservancy. So this is a nonprofit organization that's devoted to barrier island conservation, education, and preservation. Coastal visitors can actually kayak through the oyster beds of Bald Head Creek, with a coastal ecosystem expert. They can then shop afterwards, get some oyster merch at their retail store, and even volunteer to help restore their oyster reefs in the area. I want to give a shout out to Miriam Sutton, who I see is in this group. Miriam is actually a member of the Oyster Trail and also provides some amazing tours that are very much science-based in the Beaufort area, called Science by the Sea is her business or organization name. So please do check her out as well. Next slide. This is Ryan Belter. So he is a Hatteras Island-based oyster grower. And I love looking at the water and kind of the sparkle there. That's what gets me excited about my job, being able to be in that kind of environment. And he actually works with his dad, Bill Belter. They've been around for a while. They own the company Cape Hatteras Oyster Company, and they provide tours of their oyster farm. And so basically they sell oysters on site. They'll tell you all about the unique coastal environment where they are at, and just how, this really healthy, pristine environment where they are, so far out of the way on Hatteras Island, and it produces, just a really great tasting oyster. Next slide, Whitney. And then I don't want to forget some of our other shellfish friends, although I know, when you think of the Oyster Trail, you're probably only thinking oysters. But Hooper Family Seafood, they actually grow hard and sunray Venus clams. on their farm overlooking Cape Lookout National Seashore and Core Sound, so just east of Beaufort. And Mark Hooper, who runs this organization or farm with his wife Penny, he always likes to tell me, you know, some folks enjoy white and red wine, just as there are people that love clams as much as oysters. And what the Hoopers will do, if you go to visit their farm, take the next slide here, Whitney, you will get to see, you know, this is where they live. It is absolutely gorgeous. And they'll show you how to harvest, how to grade the shellfish. You can even try your luck with their bull rake. And they just have the most calming, wonderful spot on the water. And they'll even steam up some clams for you to taste. So those are just a few examples of the experiences that you can have on the trail. I do think I can show you our website briefly here. So if you want to end your share, Whitney, I'll see if I can share mine. Okay, so I believe you can see our Oyster Trail website. And again, the easiest way to find this is ncoystertrail.org. And as you scroll down here, you can see folks just having a great time, enjoying oysters on our coast. And just some of the options, like I said, you can tour a working shellfish farm, you can savor the coast's distinctive flavors, and you can discover local oyster lore. And so if you're wanting to find out, you know, where exactly you can go, you know, these are our members so far. So you can, you know, kind of scroll in or zoom in and pick out a farm. As I said, let's see, I think this is where the Hooper Family Seafood. Oh, I'm sorry. No, that's for oysters. Yeah, Hooper Family Seafood. So the description that I just gave to you is here. You can find out how to make an appointment for a tour. You know, many of our tour operators, they are really excited to get going this summer. This is a new thing for them, and COVID got a little bit in the way for some of them. But these are all of the different places that you can visit currently on North Carolina's Oyster Trail. I'm going to turn it back to you, Whitney.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jane. And we'll get back here. So like Jane said, we've got a good number of members started and really do appreciate all that insight from y'all with other opportunities, because we really are in the process of helping to support those who are already on the trail, but looking to help new members get started and to identify ideas for others to start to develop a business around oysters in North Carolina. And so the research project that I'm working on with Jane and Carla and Emily from ECU is really focused on gathering some data to help make good decisions about where we can go with this North Carolina Oyster Trail. And this research is funded by NOAA and the National Sea Grant Office. And what we've done is developed a process that's going to let us first and foremost identify the supply. So all of those great experiences and one-of-a-kind things that you can experience here in North Carolina, we're working on creating an inventory of that. So thank you to all of you today who dropped in the chat. You're helping us with this stage one of identifying the supply of all these oyster experiences that we have here in the state. And you'll notice in the map that Jane showed you from the website that we really are thinking about this as a statewide effort. Yes, most of these operations are on the coast where people are growing and harvesting oysters, but we have a lot of restaurants, we have a lot of seafood markets all across the state who are really important partners in getting these great oysters into the hands of consumers. And so we're helping to promote and market them as well. So this picture I have down here in this stage one of this research project that we're working on, I know this looks like it's a bunch of people standing around eating oysters at 10 o'clock in the morning, which is exactly what it is. It's a bunch of people standing around eating oysters at 10 o'clock in the morning. And we are out on Hatteras Island at Slash Creek Oysters, run by Spurgeon and Catherine, who are there in the background and do a really great job of growing delicious oysters. If you've ever had Slash Creek oysters, you know they're a little bit on the smaller side, but really briny and sweet, really delicious, some of my absolute favorites. And they're a great example of someone who has a really wonderful experience. They can take you out to their lease and show you where they grow the oysters. Spurgeon does a great job of talking through the process and explaining how you actually cultivate oysters, when to harvest them, what you're looking for. And for those folks who are really, don't just love to eat oysters, but really want to know more about them, this is a great experience that folks can have. And so we went out to visit Spurgeon and Catherine. Like Jane said, I was trying to place that date as well, Jane, when I was thinking about this, and I couldn't believe it's like, man, December 2019. It seems like a long time ago, but that's when it was, when we started this stage 1 of this research project and trying to identify all of these different experiences that folks can have related to oysters in North Carolina. And what we did was partner with growers like Catherine and Spurgeon, but also a lot of folks in the community. So you can't see it in this picture here, but we've got John Griffith from Hatteras. And Jane, help me out. Who's our other gentleman down there who helps with the identifying all the folks in the Outer Bank? John Griffin and who else?
Bill Husted.
Bill Husted, thank you. That's Bill there with his back to us in this picture. And there are some examples of folks who are helping to track down all these folks who could potentially be Oyster Trail members. So we've kind of gotten through stage 1. We're still collecting all these folks who are bringing the experiences, but we've moved on to stage 2. We're trying to help to measure the demand for this type of tourism, both from people who are outside of North Carolina. So we've done a lot of survey data collection with people from the various geographic areas that we know folks travel from to North Carolina, places like Ohio, Georgia, Maryland, asking them to tell us about what they're looking for in an oyster related travel experience. And we're actually still in this stage. We still have a survey out there, and we're trying to gather data from folks in North Carolina or nearby who might have an interest in traveling for an oyster-related experience. And I'll open up an opportunity for you all to participate in that a little bit later on. This stage is really important because this is going to help give our Oyster Trail members a measure of what people are looking for. They can use this information to help improve their businesses or to create a new business around North Carolina oysters. So this demand data is going to be really, really valuable for all those current business owners and future business owners in the oyster industry of Eastern North Carolina. Once we wrap up that stage 2 of data collection, we are going to move on to stage 3, which I'm really excited about. As Jane just said, a lot of these folks who are offering tours or have experiences related to oysters are really hoping that they're going to be able to welcome more people this summer, should it be safe for them to travel and do so. And in that stage, we're going to be actually measuring people's satisfaction with those experiences related to oysters. So again, there'll be just a short survey for people to fill out after they've had these experiences to really help us understand what it is about the experience that they enjoyed. What was great? What would they change? What can we do better next time? And again, this is going to help all of those small business owners improve their product and to learn a little bit more about the current customers that they have. So once we wrap that up, we're really looking forward to being able to share our resources with those growers and harvesters and the tourism businesses. Like I said before, think about all the restaurants, all the hotels, all the other attractions and events that really benefit from travel. And those folks are going to benefit from the North Carolina Oyster Trail as well. So we're looking forward to being able to share ideas on how we can bring more of a community feel to the Oyster Trail, how we can get people outside of just growing and harvesting oysters involved to really make this a great, robust, one-of-a-kind experience here in Eastern North Carolina and across the state as a whole. So what we're hoping that our work will do is to help to make North Carolina the best oyster destination I'm going to say in the world, because I think our oysters are the best. And I would love for more people to come here and experience not just the great taste and look and feel of our oysters, but also the stories behind the folks who grow and harvest those oysters. The pictures that Jane shared earlier, both of the hoopers and of the operations that we have out in Hatteras, there are people who put their life savings, their love, blood, sweat, and tears into these oysters, and they deserve recognition, and they deserve to really be known for the amazing work that they do. And to Rex's point about being competitive, that's exactly where I'm going with this, Rex, is there's a lot of other places who are trying to do this. Virginia actually has an oyster trail. Jane ran some workshops. I don't even remember when that was, Jane. That was a while ago. With the folks who developed the Virginia Oyster Trail. There's a similar trail in the Gulf. So there are more places out there that are trying to build on this, but I really do think that the unique feel of our coastal communities and the other tourism experiences that we have in Eastern North Carolina can make our state the premier oyster destination. And yes, definitely, Tony, lots of oyster festivals as well. And those sorts of events are the things that we can help to promote, we can help to expand as a part of the trail. So we're hoping that through this research, we're also going to be able to support new entrepreneurs and existing entrepreneurs in their efforts to improve and expand those one-of-a-kind experiences that people are going to travel for. So whether that's helping them with marketing and helping them to identify where they should be promoting their experiences, whether that's helping them to understand how much they can charge for these kind of experiences or what elements that they need to include in those experiences. That's what that survey data from those stage 2 and 3 that I just showed you is really going to help guide that information for them. We also are really excited to see benefits beyond just those economic impact benefits that we typically think of, helping to permeate across our coastal communities in Eastern North Carolina. Again, this is a culture, this is a part of these communities that deserves to be celebrated, it deserves to be protected, something that is going to hopefully be a long-lasting part of our communities in Eastern North Carolina. So we can utilize tourism, we can utilize that interest and all those dollars that people are willing to bring to our communities to help protect that culture and way of life that we have really grown to appreciate, right? All of us here are here because we love NC State, but also because we're interested in oysters and we know that it's something that's really valuable and worth protecting. So we can use the trail to do that. So hopefully you'll see if you check in with Jane and I next year, you'll be able to look at that list of North Carolina Oyster Trail members, and it's going to be, what do you say, Jane, twice as many people?
We'll see.
That would be great, right? We'd love to use this work to help add folks to our trail and continue to help support their work through our research. All right, so I have a few action items for you and another participation opportunity. There's a few things that you all can do as members of the PAC to help us support the North Carolina Oyster Trail. So first, I'm gonna list these off and then I want you all to drop in the chat, tell us which of these actions you can take to help us support the North Carolina Oyster Trail. So first, you can visit that website that Jane shared earlier. It's very easy to access, ncoystertrail.org. Find your local trail members, purchase their oysters, order some takeout, and make plans to visit for when it is safe to travel. Action 2. You could follow the North Carolina Oyster Trail on Instagram at NC Oyster Trail. You'll find that there lots of great content for you to enjoy. Thank you, Brooke, 1 through 4. And action 3 would be to take our survey so we can help improve oyster experiences. I'll drop a link in the chat for you all as we're wrapping up with questions. And I think Andrea is planning to send that out after we sign off today. Your insight on that, again, will be really helpful when it comes to developing those really impactful and exciting experiences for our trail members in the future. And of course, keep loving and eating North Carolina oysters. That is the best thing you can do, is continue to eat those oysters and tell other people about how great they are. So thank you for thinking about that. I love all of the above, Carol, thank you. Raphael, 1, 3, and 4 says Jack. So we've got lots of things for you to do to help us out, and we would love to hear some more ideas about how other people that we could involve in the trail, or your ideas for a great Oyster Trail experience. All of this is really helpful to us in thinking about how we make this an even better tourism experience in the future. So I believe we now have some time for questions. I've got that link for the oyster survey right there. You're welcome to follow that. It'll just take you a few minutes to finish. And if you complete it, you'll be entered to win a home delivery of 50 free oysters from Oysters Carolina. Jane, do you want to tell them a little bit about Ryan and his operation from Oysters Carolina?
Yeah, and then I'll answer a few of the questions that are in the chat as well. So Oysters Carolina is a farm managed by Ryan Bethia, and I mean his oysters, they have won so many awards. They are some of the highest quality and probably the priciest oysters around. I mean, he really sets himself up to have a very distinct, high quality product. And he delivers to your home. So, same day delivery. I mean, I'm talking about the freshest oysters that you can get. And he farms out on Harker's Island. So, again, just east of Beaufort, and, very pristine, ecological conditions. So, this is the kind of contest I'd say is worth winning. And I did put the link in the chat there. So I'm just going to answer a couple of these questions that I think I can help out with. Let's see. RM asked, what are the pros and cons of oyster farming on the local environment? Oysters are filter feeders, so they actually improve water quality. And so the more that we can grow oysters, whether that's, cultivation through farming or letting our oyster stocks rebuild, which is also another benefit of oyster mariculture or marine aquaculture, that really helps to improve our coastal ecosystems. Oyster reefs, they provide really key habitat for our spawning fish, and the reefs provide stabilization for our coastal shorelines. So one of the big benefits of eating cultivated oysters or farmed oysters is we let those wild stocks rebuild and do some of the natural, amazing work that they can do. A few other comments of just important people to know. Yes, very familiar with Jay Styron and his farm on Cedar Island. UNC Wilmington does play a critical role in oyster research, particularly related to hatchery and seed in the state. So I mentioned in the chat, Virginia has been a leader that we've looked to for so many reasons. And one of them is that they've had ongoing research for decades, about the seed, about the kinds of lines, oyster lines that are being farmed. And so we do kind of look to them. Morris Family Shellfish Farms is not currently a member on the trail, although I'm very familiar with their farm, and they do actually support and sell oysters to some of the restaurants that are members. So to be a member on the trail, that means that there's actually some kind of tourist activity. As far as I understand it right now, the Morris family, they don't provide tours just any old time, but they do on occasion. So they're not on the farm or on the trail as just constantly providing tours. Let's see here. Do farmers have to change how they are raised to be successful here because of the temperatures of the waters? So we have not the warmest temperatures, not the coldest temperatures. I mean, you can buy oysters from Maine and Washington State all the way down to the Gulf in the United States. With the warmer temperatures, we have more production because of that. We also, have to think about the health of the system. So sometimes those warmer waters, we have to kind of think about some of the concerns that folks have with disease issues, Vibrio, that maybe our northern counterparts don't have to deal with. Luckily, we have a very robust monitoring system. So the North Carolina Division of Marine Fisheries, they, basically decide if there's a rain event, then they're going to close a certain area for shellfish harvest for a period of time. And they will have to then go out after that rain event to check and make sure that the conditions are healthy to harvest. Let me see if there's Local Seafoods is a member. Yes. They are a very big supporter of the trail. Any other questions that you're seeing, Whitney, on your end?
No, I'm glad you gave the shout out there to locals. They are, of course, alums of NC State College of Natural Resources and are definitely great partners for this. I think you got the main ones. Oh, I did want to say that we have worked, and Jane, maybe you can help me remember the gentleman's name from UNC Wilmington who's doing a lot of work. This is from Mimi. Her question, I know there's a faculty member down there.
Troy Alton?
Yeah, Troy. Yep. Yep. So Troy has been a great partner. He's definitely participated in some of our workshops in that first stage where we were identifying the supply and all the different opportunities related to oysters in North Carolina. I think they have some really exciting opportunities potentially on campus, if there might be some opportunities there. And he definitely is a great partner as well. So great call, Mimi.
And Amy Wilbur, who runs the hatchery there.
Yes.
If you go to my link on some of the Sea Grant resources about oysters, there's a video about mariculture careers that Amy Wilbur from UNC Wilmington is featured in. Yes, and correct. UNC IMS does a lot with oyster farming as well. One of our growers that is a member of the trail, Clammerhead Cessna, he works with a professor at UNC IMS, and they have, just a really, really cool oyster farm on a sandbar. And you can take a guided trip out with a charter boat captain to visit. And it's just a really special experience to be able to kind of walk out there with your waders on, and they do some really unique research too to develop their oysters.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Jane
Neil's
and I
link
had.
list. Mm-hmm.
Yep. Jane and I had a chance with Carla and a few other folks to do that tour with Sea Vision Charters out of Beaufort to go out to see that, the lump, as they call it, with Clammerhead's operation. And they do some really amazing tours. I think they're doing some maintenance on their boats right now, so you couldn't go out just now, but they'll be back up and running in a few weeks. That if you ever get a chance to get down there and check out their sunset oyster tours, they're pretty fantastic and a lot of fun. So
I want to say thank you to Katie Mosier with North Carolina Sea Grant. She's here with us, our communication director, and just adding good responses into the chat. Okay, thanks, Mark, for the suggestion about Morris Family Farms. Yeah, we would love them to be a part of the trail, and we've been in touch over the years on it. And yeah, that'd be great.
Jane, where is Morris Farms located again? They're in
Down
Panhandle?
east.
Okay.
Yeah, so east of Beaufort.
Wonderful. Well, thank you all. Great questions. We've got plenty of time for more questions if you want to drop anything else in the chat. I love that we had so much interest and engagement from y'all. Wonderful ideas. I hope that we'll get to see all of you out on the trail one day, and would love for your thoughts on your experience with our trail members. That would be wonderful. Nice. I don't recognize those names from that Tony just gave us there, Jane.
No, I don't know them. Yeah, Tony, if you've got a contact or anything too, you could email us. I'll just put my email in the chat in case anyone wants to follow up.
Excellent. I can drop mine in there too as well.
And if you're interested in volunteering with the Oyster Trail, we are, trying to keep our presence as, active as possible all around the state. And you can imagine in COVID times, it's a little challenging for someone like myself who coordinates the effort from Raleigh. So I really do depend on our volunteers, on the coast and in other areas around the state to, recruit, to help to develop our members, to visit our members, to ensure that they are really spreading the North Carolina oyster word. We would never want to have a restaurant on the trail that doesn't consistently offer North Carolina oysters. So if you have an interest in this, please do shoot me an email.
Got time for just a few more questions if anybody had one. I just want to let you know that 7:15 the event will end. So if you have any burning questions, type them now, or you have the contact information for Whitney and Jane. And I just want to thank you guys so much for doing this. This was really great and super interesting, and the chat has been fantastic. So thank you everyone for participating in the chat and sharing your thoughts and questions.
Yes, you'd all get an A for participation in my class today. Well done.
Yeah,
really
get it, checking out that Oyster Trail website. Think about what would you want to do if you were going to visit one of these sites. These shellfish farm tours are just, every one of them are so unique because everyone's story is so special. And I think that's going to be just a really growing part of this, the idea of the agritourism and really connecting people to where their food comes from. You're not just visiting a land-based farm. I mean, you're seeing how people farm in the ocean. These are very kind of special techniques, and it's just not something that, every day you get to do. So if you can get out and check out one of our members, you'll not regret it.
pleasure. Thanks everyone. Have a great evening. Go Pack.